assaulting Matthew Shepard with hits Henderson, right? And then, as you point out, Ed, they leave Matthew tied to the fence, and they go to a quiet residential street in downtown Laramie. The reason is they're looking. This is according to McKinney's story. They're looking for Matthew Shepard's residence. Matthew Shepard had a driver's license that listed South 7th Street, okay, as an address. Instead of going on to South 7th Street and taking a left, they took a right and went on to North 7th Street, and they parked the car. They ended up quickly getting into a fight with two young Hispanic men who were popping tires. And that's why the police arrived at the scene, because a vandalism report had been phoned in. In the course of the altercation, before the police arrived, Aaron McKinney went to the truck and got what became the murder weapon, what was the murder weapon in the assault on Matthew Shepard, got that bloody gun and came and struck one of the Hispanic guys across the head. And he had a huge gash across his skull. As Cal Ruca, the prosecutor, said, it looked like a zipper, a bad zipper on a sleeping bag. It ran right across his skull. And so, somehow, though, the motive in the Shepard case became isolated. The context of Aaron McKinney's behavior. He's assaulted 4 males in a 24-hour period. 3 of them are straight males. But his behavior is now isolated. He's homophobic, and that's why he went on this, why he was in this raging place. And, I interviewed quite a number of people, including the man you mentioned, who actually traded the gun. He gave Aaron McKinney the .357 Magnum, the murder weapon, in exchange for methamphetamine, and had been getting high with Aaron McKinney continuously over a period of a week. He referred to it as a week-long meth bender. I've interviewed a number of people that were getting high, particularly with McKinney or McKinney and his girlfriend. Henderson was a user, but he wasn't a dealer. Aaron McKinney had been dealing methamphetamine for 3 years and had also been addicted to meth for 3 years leading up to this crime.
What was the story, too? It seems odd to me that all these young men were riding around in limousines.
Well, when you say all these men, let me say this.
Yeah.
Matthew Shepard did hire limousines, and so did Aaron McKinney. If Russell Henderson went along, it was Aaron McKinney, because Aaron McKinney had been hiring those limousines long before he and Russell Henderson even became friends. Aaron McKinney got into the limo habit. His mother died when Aaron was a teenager. It was a botched surgery, a hysterectomy. And so he was given a settlement of just under $100,000. And he was given that money, and he went through it, wild and fast. Buying cars, drugs, jewelry, giving, lavish gifts to friends.
And the rest he pissed away.
And during that period of time, right, exactly, Ed. And during that time, he really enjoyed partying in the limousine. Right. As you know, the limousine driver and owner of the company, Doc's, it's called, at the time it was called Doc's Class Act Limousine Service. Aaron McKinney, definitely hired Doc's limos. Matthew Shepard later, Matthew Shepard began hiring Doc's limos. And of course, that's a whole other story that I go into the book, and Doc's role here, which some of it is still a little shrouded in mystery. And I think some of it I really bring forward quite openly in the book. But when you ask about young men riding around in limousines, were these guys involved with selling drugs? Yes, they were. This meth was a drug that was not only moving through the parts of the country that I described to you, it was starting to become a big problem in, select urban gay enclaves. It began really with San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York, but crystal meth abuse was already a problem in the Denver gay community in 1997 when Matthew was living there. So, the Friday night before this crime happened, just a few nights before the crime happened, Matthew, on one evening, spent over $1,100 on taking the limousine out just for a night. Yes, just on a night to a dance club.
So now wait a minute, see, because now I was so those are like New York limo rates, man, like $50, $60 an hour back in the '94.
Well, no, I'd have to go back and look at the book to see what the hourly rate was. But remember, the dance club was in Fort Collins, Colorado. So you're going from Laramie, Wyoming, right?
Right.
And you're taking a ride that, we're talking probably an hour and a half ride by the time you get there. And then you're going to spend a few hours in the club, and the limousine's going to wait for you. And on that particular evening, Matthew invited a bunch of friends to go have breakfast. So then they all went to breakfast, and they included Doc, the limousine driver, for breakfast. And then after that, they drove back to Laramie and arrived back to Laramie in the early morning hours. So, he had the limousine out for a lot of hours.
When did Matthew Shepard, did he have any other source of income?
He wasn't working at that time. His parents supported him. So he did get money from his parents who were living in Saudi Arabia. And no other source of income that I know of, Ed.
But his parents
and I researched it pretty thoroughly.
His parents must have had some kind of substantial income or wealth if they were living in Saudi Arabia, because it's expensive to live there for Americans. Do we know how much money they were sending him every month?
I don't know the exact amount, but he was certainly all his needs as far as school, clothing, food, and those kinds of things were taken care of. But one of the things I go into in great detail in the book is some of the people Matthew fell in with while he was living in Denver before he moved to Laramie in the summer of 1998. A few of the people had grown up in Laramie and moved back and forth between Denver and Laramie. It's a drive of less than 2.5 hours. And it was a group of...
Get ready for the tastiest breakfast under the sun. New Jimmy Dean casserole bites. All the homemade flavors of a breakfast casserole, packed into a poppable bite.
And you know something else? They taste good.
Businesses all over the world right now are trying to reinvent how they connect with the world. Whether you're delivering packages, treating patients, or running a global customer support center, your customers need you to invent new ways to stay connected. Twilio is the platform that millions of developers trust to build seamless communications experiences with phone calls, text messages, video calls, and more. Whatever your use case, Twilio has your back. It's time to build. Visit Twilio.com to learn more.
Of people that used meth, partied together, and also sold meth, and they moved meth, back and forth. They had a route, and they brought meth from Denver to Laramie, and this was a group of people with whom Matthew was associated.
Gotcha. Now, has McKinney or Henderson ever come right out and said, "Yeah, this was we were torturing Matthew to find out where the meth was"?
Well, first of all, Aaron McKinney has never acknowledged that he knew Matthew Shepard prior to the night of the crime. And I would say, it's probably a solid dozen sources, okay, that were together with Aaron and Matthew under a variety of circumstances, and these have all been cross-referenced and cross-checked every which way. So to me, there is no question that Aaron McKinney and Matthew Shepard knew each other. Certainly, they've acknowledged to me that what was really going on that night was that Aaron McKinney was after 6 ounces of meth, that this was a shipment, and newly arrived drugs due to come into town that night. And in the book I trace that shipment of 6 ounces was being handled by the group of friends Matthew had from Denver, and it was the 6 ounces that Aaron McKinney was after that night. The 6 ounces, which had a street value of over $10,000, which Aaron McKinney, who owed money to his 2 main drug suppliers. He owed money to his drug suppliers, hadn't paid his rent yet. He had a live-in girlfriend at home and a 4-month-old son, and was really and add to that being up on meth for a week. So he saw the 6 ounces of meth as a solution to his problems. So that was what they were after that night, was the 6 ounces.
Okay, we got a break coming up. This is the long break I was telling you about. We're here with Stephen Jimenez. The Book of Matt, Hidden Truths About the Murder of Matthew Shepard. We'll be right back after this. You can pick up that book at Amazon.com on my blog, The Opperman Report. So right after this, we'll be back with more. Stephen Jimenez, author of The Book of Matt, Hidden Truths About the Murder of Matthew Shepard. Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and I just want to remind everybody that this is freedomslips.com is a listener-sponsored radio station. We take no corporate sponsorship, so if you like what you're hearing and you want to hear the truth, here's a story 14 years plus has been kept in the dark, but here we're coming out with it tonight, the story of Matthew Shepard and the truth about his death and his murder, which you won't hear anywhere else. So if you want to hear this kind of stuff here, you got to go to freedomslips.com, click on the donate button, and donate and support the show. So we're here tonight with Stephen Jimenez, author of The Book of Matt, Hidden Truths About the Murder of Matthew Shepard. Now, that book's available on Amazon.com, and it's also, you can go to my website, my blog, The Opperman Report, and you can click on the button there. You can pick it up tonight. Now, Stephen, we were talking about Doc, the limo driver, and stuff like that. Now, and where did these guys come up with the money to be running around in these limousines in this small town in Laramie, Wyoming, which just seemed odd to me from the start. So now, what did Doc ever say to you about drug dealing with this bunch, or where they got their money from?
Yeah. And Ed, how's the sound there?
Real good.
Okay?
Yeah, really good, yeah.
I've got the earphones. Okay,
much better.
Good. I've done many interviews with Doc, and there were things early on that he wouldn't talk about that gradually over time he said more and more. But he was always very, very careful not to say anything that could, make him liable in terms of any kind of, legal fashion. But Doc, Doc knew certainly that, when he had people that hired the limousines, that they could be involved in, not just alcohol use, but drug use in the limos. But he just said, my job, because they wanted to have privacy in the back of the limousine, and I just essentially looked the other way. That's what he has always said. However, as I've looked into Doc's activities over the years, he's a very colorful character. And, this is a man who, has been involved over the years in many, many businesses. He owned adult bookstores in Denver. He had, he brought strippers up to Wyoming and had a club up in Basler where he lives, which is about 18 miles north of Laramie. It's a tiny old railroad town. If you drove through it, it looks like a ghost town as you drive through. And Doc had a club up there where he brought strippers up from Denver. So he has a very colorful past, okay? And he's acknowledged a lot about his own history, that he had been involved, as a young man with porn films and as a hustler, has acknowledged certainly that he had sexual involvement with Aaron McKinney, the killer.
Really?
And other things. But it really took a long time for Doc to open up. But it's interesting that he's someone that everyone has been fascinated with because